Book talk on James Joyce's Ulysses. Not the most attractive cover, but it's what we used for the purposes of my independent study. Why do we read epic poetry and literature? What is their purpose? What are their connections to the modern world through literature, politics, and interpersonal relationships in a lifelong journey? And why is my selected novel for reading relevant to my subject matter? Reading Ulysses for independent study this semester required me to focus on the merits of revisiting the epic and what it is about the genre that keeps readers coming back. It is loosely tied to the order and timeless metaphor of Homer's Odyssey. Homer's crafted prose created vivid characters and plot descriptions through sound and color with repetitions that foreshadow, and so did James Joyce's Ulysses centuries later. Ulysses is a humorous fantasy on some serious trials of human nature of the grandest and surrealistic proportion. Published in 1922 by Shakespeare and Company out of France, I can't say that it was banned from U.S. publishing for its adult religious and political parody and lampoon, but its United States publishing was delayed until 1934 when Random House printed and distributed this old tale. The modern retelling of Homer's Odyssey requires global and analytical thinking. Historical subjects include the politics of Ireland, British imperialism, the Turks, Romans, Greeks, Phoenicians, and probably some Venetians too. Through the turn of the 19th century, or I should say though the turn of the 19th century, Joyce uses a modern urban setting to describe an ancient tale of traveling to a foreign place and back, and asking the reader forces us to ask ourselves, well, what happened while I was away? What happened in that time that I was gone? In the case of Ulysses, well, maybe he was gone to a dream or working through things that are necessary for that adult figure. Synopsis. In a day in the life surrounding a funeral to honor an acquaintance named Patty Dignam from a junction in the lives of the main characters that intersected only one time some 16 years earlier, Stephen Dedalus and Leopold Bloom each have personal battles that require overcoming guilt and finding redirection in life. All this happens over a very long day filled with events surrounding a funeral set in turn of the 19th century Dublin. It's about a 24-hour time period, actually, this entire novel, but it doesn't matter because it's timeless. Each of the 18 chapters of this novel by author James Joyce is both a reflection of the original epic and a parody of relevant, historic, political, and Catholic sacrament. There is beauty in the sarcasm and sarcasm in the beauty in this timeless tale. I was there. I felt like I was there. Through this read, I have visited Dublin, and I am enlightened. It's a nice trip. My favorite part of the book, I chose to write a paper on the chapter Circe, for it was a try and read and provided the most valuable view of the collective psyche of the novel's characters. It was dreamy, surreal, symbolic, and spiritual. I also liked the chapter on the sirens that took place in an Irish pub with gold and bronze details and a soundtrack of piano tunings and humorous cacophony. Each chapter had its own location. Timeless, yet these individual stories occurred all in one day. My favorite chapter in terms of its language and all of the voices of the history of what we know as English was from the chapter Oxen of the Sun and the story of this creation. Here it goes. Wisdom hath built herself a house, this vast, majestic, long-established vault, the crystal palace of the Creator, all in apple pie order, a penny for him who finds the pea. This description in this chapter centers around the birth of a child in a hospital wing while some off-duty med students and Stephen Dedalus encounter Leopold Bloom. Over some absinthe for the sipping, the students discuss the birth of language, prophecy, and other curiosities as the birth of friendship begins between the two central characters. Here's some more. A black crack of noise in the street here. Alack, bald back. Loud on left Thor thundered. In anger, awful the hammer hurler. Came now the storm that hissed his heart, and Master Lynch bade him, gave with care, to flout and wint wanton as the god self was anchored for his hell-prate and paganry. And he had that erst challenge to be so doughty waxed wan, as they might all mark and shrank together. To be so doughty waxed wan, as they might all mark and shrank together, and this pitch that was before so hot uplift was now all of a sudden quite plucked down, and his heart shook within the cage of his breast, and tasted the rumor of that storm. Then did some mockin', some jeer, and Punch Costello fell hard again to his yale, which Master Lenhen vowed he would do after that, and he was indeed but a word and a blow on the least color. But the braggart boaster cried that old nobody daddy was in his cups, who was much what indifferent, and he would not lag behind his lead. But this was only to die his desperation as cowed he crouched in Hornets Hall. He drank indeed at one draught, to pluck up a heart of any grace, for it thundered long rumblingly over the heavens so upon that crack of doom, and Master Bloom at the braggart's side spoke to him calming words to slumber his great fear, advertising how it was no other thing but a hubbub noise that he heard, the discharge of fluid from the thunderhead, look you, having taken place, and all of the order of a natural phenomenon. The braggart in the passage is Stephen, who is afraid of thunder, and also water, we will find out in chapter 17, Ithaca. That's also symbolic of the Scylla and the Charybdis. My criticism on the novel Ulysses by James Joyce: at times he provides too much information that maybe he just can't stop with his pen. Apparently his poetry and dramatic flair for writing were considered avant-garde or untraditional to readers of the English language. In chapter 17, Ithaca, I want the character Leopold Bloom to be safely home. What Joyce gives us is a long myriad of cosmic debris, essentially of how these worlds have smashingly collided. Perhaps after reading of the chapter Circe, I was exhausted by detail. Still, the imagery is painted through Joyce's immense and intense vocabulary, no matter which character he is describing. Why would I recommend this book? This is the grand epic, the center stage. The Odyssey, Hamlet, Divine Comedy, Beowulf, Gulliver's Travels, the Old Testament, the New Testament. The history of the English language is contained in this book. It is the greatest story ever told, and it happens to each of us every day, if we just look around. If you enjoy a challenging read and have ever spent time in the Catholic Church observing its sacramental rites, then you should read this. If you have an appreciation for poetry and sound, juxtaposition of consonants and assonance, and all poetic elements, then you should read this. I found one simple limerick in this Irish tale of 18 chapters and 644 pages. Leopold Bloom had stopped by the newspaper's office in chapter 7, Aeolus, a series of short articles and conversations, as a literary device in a random published limerick for the streets of Dublin in June of 1904. It was noted in character Lenehan's limerick. There's a ponderous pundit McHugh wears goggles of ebony hue, as he mostly sees double. To wear them, why trouble? I can't see the Joe Miller, can you? Ulysses had no shortage of random people that one could devote a lifetime of study to figure out their reality in James Joyce's creative world. I know that I will be teaching literature of epic content over and over. I hope that my legacy to my students includes an interest in literature, and that they return to worthwhile themes that are both enjoyable and useful to literacy development and critical